Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. I'm going to be discussing the Diversity Award presentation. Our company has been nominated for a National Diversity Award due to our efforts and dedication to diversity initiatives. And so I'm going to talk about that today and summarize what we have done and why we should win that award. My name is Stacy Williams, and I'm the HR director for our U.S.-based global organization. Our company had been lacking in our initiatives of diversity in the workplace, and so I have taken some time and evaluated the initiatives, made some recommendations to create an atmosphere that's attractive to diverse individuals and that fits the culture of what we are trying to achieve here. Studies have proven that higher levels of ethnic and gender diversity within a company allows for better performance. And to achieve this level, we have to provide training and inclusion efforts to change our employees' mindsets. And we do need to align our policies and culture to include the diverse populations as well. Why is workplace diversity important? Well, companies, again, that have a greater diversity in leadership roles are more likely to yield higher profit margins and be more successful. A couple of different companies, Procter & Gamble and McKinsey & Company, are a few examples that have committed to that greater gender diversity in the workplace, and they have had higher percentages of profitability and employee scores for their businesses. So taking that information into mind, we've tried to look at diversity as being good for our business and being able to create a broader talent pool that would increase our productivity and earnings. Diversity can provide different points of views, different perspectives, different opportunities. It allows for group collaboration and life experiences to come into play when making different decisions in workplaces, working as teams and individuals. It also reduces turnover and boosts morale among employees, and then the organization also has a reflection of the customers that it's trying to communicate with in the in and outside and with sales. So companies that do have strong diversity initiatives are often preferred vendors and employers. A little more on workplace collaboration and innovation. Some statistical information is that by providing innovation within a workforce, we actually see the innovation increase 83% when a team is diverse. And decision making improves 60% when a team is diverse. Everybody has a unique identity that plays a role in how we behave, how we view things, how we view situations, what our thoughts are. And those characteristics develop in a diverse employee population. And if companies embrace this innovation and remain relevant in the competitive market, that'll increase their efficiency as well. And so these skills can include experience, strengths, different perspectives of these individuals that are involved. Excuse me. Global operations do require the knowledge of different things than what we would know here in the United States. We would need to know some religious differences, cultural differences, their societal norms, and their communication styles. Collaborative and diverse workforces also need to know how to handle conflicts, bridge gaps, reduce their turnover, and attract and retain customers. And so our goal is to retain top talent and increase innovation and creativity in our company. Diversity helps provide for this inclusive culture and relies on differences for the growth and bridging gaps between our markets, our employees, and our customers. There are some steps involved in a diversity plan, and there's 4 of those. We'll discuss them here. The first step is taking an analysis of the company. You want to include relevant data about diversity in and outside the company. In my particular case, I focused on gender. So the information that I received was through the Bureau of the U.S. Department of Labor that 57% of women are in the labor workforce. So that's over half of the workforce is women as opposed to men. And 70% of those women in the workforce have children under 18. The earnings ratio wage gap is still quite a bit different, with a little over 21% from women to men in the gap there. So looking at some other statistics, in 2016 there was 49 million full-time working women in the workforce. And growth into the year 2024 is projected to be at about not quite 6%, and the largest increase, oddly enough, is expected in women 65 and older. That's because people are working longer, they're staying in the workforce longer, they aren't able to retire as early as maybe their parents did. So we do have to embrace current and future changes, with women workers increasing locally and globally as countries seek to empower more women in the workplace. And education, there's 57% of women that are earning bachelor's degrees since 1999. So women are increasing in the workforce, and we have to take a peek at this information and try to provide opportunities for women to advance in our company. We can also look at non-traditional role filling, which are more geared towards skilled laborers. There is a deficit of skilled laborers in the workforce, and if we have any areas within our company that we can look at skilled laborers, that might be a really good place to empower some women in traditionally male-filled roles. Even maybe finding these people fresh out of high school and empowering them to attend trade skilled laboring so that we can bring them on board when they are done with school and help them pay for that schooling. Sorry about that. It's popping up there. Let's see. Women can also provide additional skills in the workforce because they are very empathetic. They have a lot of good intuition. They're very optimistic. They have a lot of emotional intelligence and passion, and they're very helpful. So our needs analysis defines what we must accomplish to create an inclusive environment. It's just like taking your grocery list and going to the grocery store. If you don't have a list, you certainly aren't going to know what you need when you get there. You might remember a few things, but you're going to forget a lot. I do that all the time. So it's good to have an analysis to provide us with all this written information so that we can figure out a way to make things work and review areas that we need to improve. So step 2 is the strategy alignment. And that is looking at aligning the global and local organizational goals with our diversity plan. So teams have to be as diverse in the area in which we're located as those to which we're selling products. We want to keep in mind that we are all different. That is a reality. No two people are alike, and this shouldn't be causing any problems. Everybody's views are valid and they're not threatening. We want to celebrate all levels, from field employees up to management. We want to support different backgrounds of people, explore other cultures while we seek to include them. We want to provide equal treatment and talk about differences to create awareness. And we want to avoid assumptions, because when you assume things, that gives us preconceived notions. We're losing out on opportunities to get to know other people and to form new bonds and new interests. Step 3 is kind of a long one. It talks about implementation. So this is how we're going to implement our diversity training. We want to look at programs that reduce prejudice and discrimination and enhance interactions with others. We want to explore different cultural backgrounds for global measures. And HR and management would want to be trained in these initiatives first so that they can turn around and train employees as well. And we want to look at attracting and retaining the best talent regardless of individual differences. So the more diversified we are, the better we are able to adapt to different situations. Different cultural backgrounds allow for problem solving using our experience and knowledge, because men and women see and experience things differently. So each person can bring a different view to the situation. Men are more, concrete, and women are a little bit more maybe abstract, able to see different sides of the equation and be open to more change. So coaching and mentoring with diversity in mind would create the stability and fairness that we would need within our company. HR can build acceptance towards diversity and ethics, and we would also want to make sure that sexual harassment is investigated and corrective actions taken. And then we want to set some standards when dealing with global corporations, because other countries have different cultural norms and regulations, so we don't want to be unfair or unequal in other places. Sometimes countries are not so in favor of women being in leadership positions, so possibly sending a woman over to negotiate a contract in a country where women are not accepted would not necessarily be the best idea, because they may not be looked upon favoritively. We also have to keep in mind other countries' child labor laws, different things like that can crop up, where here in America, kids cannot work before the age of 14 or 16 and only certain jobs, and after age 18 they can work different places as well, depending on the skill sets involved. But in other countries, children working is actually the norm. They have to work. They're expected to work. So we have to keep an open mind to some of those ideas as well. And then when we form teams, we want to bring the different departments and different people in to develop different strategic planning and processes for implementing different programs within the company. We want to approach diversity holistically and focus on each person's unique strengths. We want to be able to empower the LGBT community and women in the workforce, and allow for gender advancement opportunities. This would be through different things like mentoring, training, cross-training, grooming, classes that they could take, things like that. And then we want to adjust the measures as necessary to encompass the changing culture of society. What we see a lot of now is flexible scheduling, part-time workers, remotely working, people working from home, more of that work-life balance versus what was traditional in the past. And then bottom-up approaches to engagement is very common as well. That's valuing all feedback, providing accountability, and empowering employees to do their best within the job. Inclusion can be simple. When we're implementing a diversity program, we can have simple things. It can be elaborate, simple, whatever it might be. Oftentimes it's just having like a potluck at work, or a lunch, off-site, getting to know other people, getting to know them in a personal way versus just in a work light. And HRS systems can help us maintain a diverse workforce by helping curb human bias. Resumes can be filtered through the HRS system so that we aren't hiring the same like-minded individuals. And then keeping pay transparency at the forefront allows males and females to be paid the same wages at our company as well. And we want to model inclusive leadership behaviors and empower women to negotiate their roles and pay and appoint them to leadership positions, because currently there's about 5% of women in the workforce that are CEOs, and only 10% of women are top earners. Step 4 and our diversity plan wrap up. I am going to take just a quick break here for any questions, and we'll be right back.